And hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today to hear about our HOPE cohort. It's great to see everyone. And just to begin, I wanted to acknowledge that the program operates at the UBC campus in Vancouver, which is on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Musqueam people. And I wanted to also recognize the importance of that statement. I think we're in a disciplinary area with health, outdoor, and physical education. I think having historical links to colonialism, and I think recognizing that and recognizing our relationship to those histories, as well as our relationships to First Nations people where we work and live is absolutely necessary and an important part of the program. For today, we'll be introducing some of the instructors in HOPE, offering a bit of a program overview, going over the schedule for the cohort in more detail, and then I'll pass it over or pass it back to Kelvin, who will talk about some of the points relating to applications and admissions. And then we'll have lots of times for questions and answers as well. So our HOPE team is made up of 4 faculty. So myself, Shawn Forde, Dr. Leanne Petherick, who is here, Steve McGinley, who I think is also here, and Dr. Carrie Renwick, who is a professor in HOPE. She does work around health education and health literacy, and she actually runs one of our cohorts on home economics. So she's not here today, but she's part of our team. Just to quickly introduce myself, I do research around physical and health education, but primarily relating to the way that youth sport is connected to community development. And as well, I have an interest in arts-based methods and connections between art and health and physical education. I think Leanne is here. Leanne, if you want to introduce yourself.
The program area. Part of my research interests lie in sort of the intersection between health and physical education, looking at social justice issues in relation to how we teach and what we teach in health education and what it means for a number of stakeholders, youth, parents, teachers, policymakers. And then also thinking about some of my research, I guess, is focused on girls' participation in physical education. And then another arm of my research looks at Indigenous ways of knowing through human movement. Yeah, and I welcome you to the session, and it's really excited to see such an interest in the HOPE cohort. Just to briefly say, this is the 3rd potential iteration, and I think if you talk to any previous students, they had a wonderful time in the cohort. It's a really great opportunity. So thank you, Dr. Forde, for organizing this again.
Great, thanks. And then I think Steve McGinley is here as well. Steve, if you want to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Shawn. Thank you, Leanne. Hello, everyone. My name is Steve McGinley. I'm a 4th-year PhD candidate in the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy here at the University of British Columbia. I'm also a faculty member in the Health, Outdoor, Physical Education area. I'm also currently on the PhD Canada Research representative for BC for the Board of Directors for PhD Canada. Happy that I'm a product of one of the original HOPE programs, master cohort, and graduated in 2015. And my current research lies in the multi-sectoral approach to school physical activity and physical literacy, and developing the partnerships and relationships and the promotion and the advocacy for quality physical and health education and the physical literacy movement. So I'm happy to also be a member of this HOPE cohort. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks again, Leanne. So just to note as well, you might have seen on the opening slides that the program itself offers a Master's of Education in Curriculum Studies. So our HOPE area is situated within the Faculty of Education in the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy. And the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy at UBC is committed to advancing research and learning into the learning and teaching in a variety of contexts across the lifespan. So that's just a note to explain where we're situated. And then, as Leanne and Steve mentioned, there have been previous cohorts in our area. So the first cohorts were focusing on physical education, with the first one happening from 2009 to 2011, and then 2012 to 2014. And as Steve mentioned, he was part of this. And these cohorts had a focus on teaching games for understanding. But then I think just through the context within which we work, the British Columbia government, through curriculum reform in 2016, merged health and physical education. And around that same time, our department shifted towards that approach as well, integrating health and physical education, but then also recognizing the ways that outdoor education intersect with those as well. And we started with the first Hope cohort in 2017, and then the second one just finished in 2021. So this has been run a few times, and as Leanne mentioned, the response has been quite positive. Just as a very broad overview, the start date for this cohort will be July 2024. It'll run for 2 years and a term, so 2.5 years. It's a blended format, which I'll get into more details about in a little bit later in terms of offering in-person and online classes. And then the application deadline is in January of next year. In terms of a program focus, the Hope cohort integrates these 3 areas: physical education, health education, and outdoor education, and tries to bring them into conversation with each other as opposed to how they're sometimes taught in isolation. The cohort aims to serve health, outdoor, and physical educators interested in developing curriculum in their schools, as well as improving their own practice or investigating their own practice. But it's also interested in education outside of the school. So the Hope cohort provides opportunities for educators from various backgrounds to consider how health, outdoor, and physical experiential education extend beyond school settings to include community-based relationships and applications to health, childhood, and youth sectors, as well as opportunities to enhance population well-being. And importantly, the cohort is underpinned by ideas from experiential education and social justice. In terms of some broad learning outcomes that are addressed through some of the courses and through students' own work, students will demonstrate an understanding of the theoretical and philosophical perspectives that underpin Hope, as well as experiential education and social justice. Students will critically analyze the social and cultural contexts of health, outdoor, and physical education, and identify and address inequities and disparities in access to quality health, outdoor, and physical education. Students will learn, analyze, and implement a variety of pedagogies. They'll be able to analyze and develop innovative and inclusive curriculum that integrates these 3 areas. They'll engage in critical discussions relating to current research in Hope and use current research to develop their own understandings of curriculum and pedagogy. And then I think an aspect of the cohort that is important is that students will produce knowledge and research relating to their own learnings and practices within the area of Hope. In terms of an audience, the primary audience for the cohort has been practicing teachers in the K through 12 education system. However, some previous cohort members have come from other educational fields, such as early childhood education or adult education, or have worked in community-based education through community organizations, and have gone on to work in educational settings outside of K through 12. But the vast majority have been practicing teachers. As well, because of the focus on knowledge production and the graduating project, some Hope cohort members have moved on to doctoral studies. And Steve is an example of that as well. In terms of the schedule for our cohort, as I mentioned, it's broken down to in-person and online courses. So starting in the summer of July next year, the summer will have 2 courses in person, experiential education, and then a curricular innovations in PE course. For the winter term, which runs from September to December, winter term 1, there's one course on health education, social justice and health education. And then winter term 2 will have 2 online courses. These are the 2 courses that will be taught through the cohort, but are requirements for all Masters of Education programs. And it's a broad curriculum and pedagogy course, as well as a research methods course. In the second year of the program, so the second summer, so July 2025, there will be in-person courses for physical education and outdoor education, as well as an online health education course in summer term 1, which runs from May through June. The in-person courses will take place at roughly the same time as the first year, which would be in July. And then winter term 1 of the second year involves an online course that is primarily focused around getting students prepared to complete their graduating project. So it's an asynchronous online course. And then the credits for the graduating project occur through winter term 2 and continue into the summer of the third year in terms of getting the graduating project done. And that's also an asynchronous online course. Essentially, the third year of the program, or that extra term, is used to finish the graduating projects, and then the culminating activity for the cohort will involve a HOPE conference where we'll be presenting the finished work. In terms of previous HOPE graduates, just a couple of testimonials from the past 2 HOPE cohorts. So having a group to go back to and collaborate, communicate with through this journey has been extremely valuable. Meeting like-minded people who I'm able to work with to challenge me in my thinking, as well as support me in my ideas. And then in this most recent HOPE cohort, the benefit of the MEd in HOPE is that now when I take students outside, I know that there's a lot of research to prove that what we're doing is beneficial. We're not just going outside to play. There's so much that I can do outside that covers the curriculum. And as well, just from our most recently completed HOPE cohort, I've listed just the titles of some students' graduating projects that speak to the range of work that people complete. And as you'll see from the titles, it ranges across health, outdoor, and physical education. The graduating projects themselves, which we can speak to more in the Q&A as well, are quite flexible in their approach. So some students will conduct research for their graduating project, while as there are also options to use the graduating project to focus more on your teaching practice or develop teaching resources. So there is quite a bit of flexibility in the graduating project. It doesn't have to be a traditional research paper in that sense. So that's just the basic information for the cohort, and we'll take a break now to open it up to any questions about the program itself, around the courses that are taught, the scheduling, anything like that. If you have questions about the admission process or the application process, Kelvin will speak to that in a little bit, but for now, we just wanted to open it up to any questions about the program.
Let's see. Oh, we have a question for you, Shawn. Question is, how many of the courses include Indigenous ways of knowing and Indigenous content in general?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, I think Indigenous perspectives are essential within our area. So even when we're thinking about something like experiential education, there are histories of Indigenous thought relating to topics such as that. So in many ways, it's something that we try to weave into all of the courses in HOPE, in ways in terms of finding readings or other perspectives, as well as having the potential for involving guest instructors and guest speakers as well.
And I think we also have another question, which is, what are the perspectives of the program for early childhood educators?
Yeah, another good question. I think in terms of early childhood education, and as well, Leanne can speak to this if she has some perspectives, but I think in early childhood education, conceptions around play-based learning, place-based learning, and things such as that are intricately connected to health, outdoor, and physical education. We don't necessarily teach directly to early childhood educators, but I think the content has a lot of valuable overlap for people who work in early childhood education.
Yeah, thanks, Shawn. And I think just to add, I think the content applies to broad areas of education. So thinking about concepts that spread across the lifespan, or thinking about the ways in which we position young people as learners, I think come up in many of the courses. And from this couple of students who graduated from the last Hope cohort, although I sometimes get them kind of blended together, not necessarily early childhood educators, but probably early years teachers, I would say, really sort of gravitated to the outdoor learning spaces as a way to engage young people in learning. And like the quote from one of the students, being able to justify what you might know intuitively as an educator to say, here's research behind this. I think a lot of students that teach younger people appreciated that type of experiential knowledge. So just to add to that.
With another question from Jennifer. Can prior master's courses be ported over to this program? For example, the research course and the pedagogy course, can it be ported over? Jennifer, do you mean in the sense of like transfer credits or?
Yes.
Any insight on that, Shawn?
Yeah, that's like a more of an administrative question, so I would have to double check on it. I think in terms of the way that we offer, for example, the research methods class, it will be very much tailored towards students preparing to do their graduating project. So in that sense, it will offer some extra room for sort of preparing proposals relating to the project that students would like to pursue. So it would be fairly valuable to complete that course in terms of how it connects to the graduating project. But Jennifer, I'll check with the administrative side of things to see what that looks like in terms of transfer credits.
Okay. Next question is from Talia. Can you speak to the length of the summer courses? It seems to be 10 to 11 days. The outdoor education class had 3 class codes. Does that mean 3 classes during the 10 to 11 days in July?
No, so that's a great question. Thanks for clarifying that. The codes are listed because those are potential courses that could be offered. And I think this relates to Selena's question as well in terms of what courses were offered. So in previous cohorts, students were able to choose a single stream to focus on. So they could focus on physical education or they could focus on outdoor education. For this cohort, we're trying to offer a more integrated approach where students will take physical education, outdoor education, and health education courses. In terms of the scheduling in the summer, the way it would work is for the 2 weeks that you're in person, one of those weeks you will be completing a single physical education course, and then one of those weeks you'll be completing a single outdoor education course. So it's a condensed course that's run over a single week, essentially. Hopefully that answers the question. So the extra course codes that are listed are just for the second summer. The courses are still yet to be determined. So the potential courses are listed there. So I see Selena's question in terms of how many, what's the minimum number that we need? Calvin, I'm not sure if you have that on hand. I think it was around 17.
Yes, let me double check, and in the meantime, maybe you can answer the next question.
Yeah, so in terms of face-to-face and online class looks like if you're doing work. So the online classes that are more synchronous, if there are meeting times, they'll occur around 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. Pacific time. So our courses in the graduate program are usually offered at times to cater to working teachers. In terms of the in-person courses in the summer, because they're condensed 1-week courses, they are essentially all day courses, or you'd be expected to be in person all day. But we're offering those in the summer, and then the online courses in the 2 winter terms, ideally for people who are working during those winter terms, so that they'd be able to complete the coursework or attend sessions after work. So I'm not sure if that answers the question, Rubina.
Okay, so
Yes.
jumping back a little bit, the minimum number of students needed for this program to start is 17. And for Josh's question regarding the teaching credits, I will go over that in a little bit. Ian, did you have something that you wanted to add?
I think if I could just say the summer courses that are, I think they're fairly intense. They sometimes come with pre-readings, but the time together is actually often works out to creating a sense of community in the cohort, because everyone's sort of under the same time frame to do things, but it also, that intense time together builds a real rapport and relationship with some of your colleagues. And then in the online time, I think it's also designed to support many of you that probably have many interests in your own community or teaching that are doing multiple things in the fall and the winter, so that you can try to keep all of those things that you're passionate about going while you're still pursuing higher education.
Okay, I guess we can now move on to the admissions and application related things. Shawn, would you like to share the screen again?
Yeah.
So regarding admissions and application information, my name is Kelvin. I'm the Senior Program Assistant for PDCE, and we handle the admissions and administrative side of things for this particular program. Next slide. So our role, as I've said before, we handle anything administrative in regards to application processing and the registration of courses if required. So for any questions relating to the admin application stuff, you can contact me. And for any program content related questions, you can refer to Dr. Shawn. Just note that this program is considered a part-time program, and the total credits is 30 credits. So regarding the admissions requirements, you're expected to have completed a 4-year undergraduate degree with an average in the B+ range. That is a 76% at UBC for all senior level courses. So those would be level 300, 400, or 500 courses, depending on which institution you're from. Please note that even if your GPA doesn't meet the above criteria, this is not a hard cutoff point. If the rest of your application is strong enough, the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy may submit a special case rationale to recommend you for admission regardless, if the rest of your application is strong enough. They're expected to be able to produce transcripts from all post-secondary institutions that you have attended, with the exception of UBC. Please note that once you're admitted to the program, you will have to provide official field transcript to the Faculty of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies. When we say all transcripts, that means any transfer credits, any exchange programs, even if it is just 1 or 2 courses. If it is from another institution, you will have to include that institution's transcripts as well. And it is important that these are quote unquote relatively new transcripts, in the sense that it must show on the transcript that you have actually completed the program. So transcript that you ordered while you were still doing that particular program won't count, unfortunately. Additionally, you'll be asked to submit a 600-word statement of intent, to clearly outline your experiences and interests in the HOPE program. And you should specify your interest in one of the 3 streams that's outlined. Additionally, we mentioned previously that sometimes if you do not meet a particular admission requirement, if the rest of the application is strong enough, we might submit a special case rationale for you. However, your statement of intent is also where, if you understand that you do not meet a 76%, maybe you're only a 74 or 72, this is also your chance to make the case as to why you are still a good fit for the program. Next slide. Additionally, you are asked to include a resume, and this will include your education, coursework, employment history, and all that stuff. Since this is a resume not for job hunting, this is for a graduate program's application, there is no need to be concise in this resume. This resume is the chance for you to showcase everything that you have achieved, and we recommend it to be relatively detailed. There's no need to be concise. Additionally, you will require 3 references eventually. We can speak to your engagement with health, outdoor, and physical experiential education. Basically, people who can vouch for your ability to do this program and familiar with your academic work. So basically how this works is, when you are applying for the program, you will be asked to provide the email address of the 3 referees, and afterwards a link will be sent to the referees for them to directly upload their references. Please note that your referees cannot send us an email directly. It has to be uploaded through the portal with the provided link. And another thing to note is that because this was something that was brought up recently, if you are looking to access your reference ladders under UBC's confidentiality policies, we're actually not allowed to send you your reference ladders after they've been uploaded by your referees. You'll have to reach out to your referees themselves directly to ask for the reference ladders. Next page. Additionally, there is an English language proficiency standard. So basically, applicants from universities outside of Canada, in which English is not the primary language of instruction, must provide results for an English language proficiency test. The test must have been taken within the last 24 months at the time of submission of your application. So this is not something where you can apply for the program and then supplement the English test retroactively. It must be submitted along with the initial submission. And you can just Google UBC Graduate School English Language Test for the specific test scores and tests accepted. Next slide. So regarding the actual application procedure, application instructions, the detailed ones can be found on the application and the program website. It is grad.ubc.ca/apply/online. While you're applying, you'll be asked to upload an electronic copy of your transcripts. Remember, we require both front and back if there's anything in the back, along with the statement of intent, the resume, any degree certificates if applicable, and also any English language assessment report if needed. You have to indicate the stream that you intend to pursue, which are health, outdoor, and physical experiential education. And it's very important that when you're applying, you choose the correct program. This is the HOPE program, the third one. So the course code will be HOP3. Remember to choose the correct program. You don't want to accidentally apply for another graduate degree. And once you are formally admitted, you'll be asked to provide official sealed transcripts from each institution that you have attended, with the exception of UBC. Next slide. So regarding the application deadline, the application is currently open, so you can start applying as of today. The application deadline is January 15th, 2024. This includes the submission of all supporting documents by that point. The application fee for domestic applicants is 112 Canadian dollars, whereas for international applicants, so this is anyone who's on a study or work permit, would be roughly 168 Canadian dollars. Slide. Regarding finances and the program tuition, this program is going to be paid per installments with, payable over a minimum of 7 installments. This is one for each term of your program. So the total tuition cost for domestic students is roughly 16,400 Canadian dollars, whereas for international students, it will be roughly 18,200 Canadian dollars. So these are charged as a whole, as a program fee, is not charged on a per credit basis. They're usually due at the beginning of each term, which are January, May, and September. Please note that tuition may be raised by up to 2% annually by UBC, but if there are increases, it will be announced in spring each year. Again, it's very important to understand that this program is a part-time program, and as such is unfortunately not eligible for student loans or other types of funding. Next slide. And there are student fees on top of that. Student fees are charged in addition to tuition and vary from term to term. You should budget for approximately $800 to $900 per winter term. There are some fees that you can opt out of the $800 to $900 mark. Firstly, there is a medical and dental plan that is approximately $338 per year. You're able to opt out of that if you wish. Additionally, there is also the U-Pass for individuals who are not living in the Greater Vancouver area. The U-Pass is a public transit pass, and it's approximately $180 per term. And you're able to opt out of this feature if you wish, if you live outside of the Greater Vancouver area. If you live within it, you are not allowed to opt out, unfortunately. Fees are subject to change manually, and only the information on the UBC calendar is official. Everything showcased in these slides is just an approximation. Next slide. So regarding Josh's question, if you are a teacher in the Vancouver Lower Mainland and you have taken UBC teacher students in your classrooms as student teachers, you might be eligible to claim credits, basically. If this applies to you, please contact the teacher education office at teacher.ed@ubc.ca. This is a process that is not overseen by PDCE. It is overseen by the teacher education office, which is why you will be contacting them separately. I'm going to include the email in the chat for you. Yes. And next slide. So now is the time for any questions that you might have. And I have a question from Jennifer in the chat already. Jennifer asked, I completed a MEd in science with UBC in 2020. Do I still need to send in all of the application paperwork? If you already applied for, completed a degree in 2020, we should have most of your application paperwork still available. It would depend on when you applied for the program that you completed initially, because UBC's policies is that we can only keep application documents for upward of 6 to 7 years, I believe. If you're unsure, I recommend that after you apply, maybe also send PDCE an email just to tell them that, you should still have like all my application documents on hand and we will look through them. Are there any other questions?
I see one from Justin, and maybe before answering Justin's question, maybe just to offer some clarification on, I think, the application process and what Kelvin said, because I think there was still some older information in there about the different streams. So as I mentioned, we're really trying to move towards integrating health, outdoor, and physical education through the cohort. So we're having students take courses in all of those areas. So there's not necessarily strict streams for the cohort, but during your application, in your letter of intent and in the application, I think mentioning either through your own background or through your own interests, if you do have a particular interest in one of the areas, whether it be outdoor education or health education, I think making that apparent in your application is quite helpful so that we can make sure that the cohort has a balance of the different areas. Because I think that's one of the benefits of the cohort is getting teachers and educators from health, outdoor, and physical education together. So although we're not streaming the courses within the cohort, I think knowing what background you come from is still incredibly helpful.
Shawn, I have a quick question about the stream, and you kind of just answered it right now, but because you're changing it now so that everyone takes courses that cover all 3 streams, do the courses that you offer, are they still kind of isolated or focused on their stream, or are the courses also offering kind of an integrated lens on the 3 streams?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lindsay. So I think the integration is something that we will be aiming for across the courses. So I think Steve as well can speak to this in more detail because he has been teaching a lot of our physical education courses. And I think even within the graduate courses that he's offered, students have been able to bring in their interests in outdoor education to find ways that physical education can inform their practice in outdoor education, or vice versa, where a student's interest in outdoor education could inform practices in physical education. So we are very much trying to find ways to integrate the different streams within the individual courses. And ultimately, I think the attempt is that the students' individual interests and passions will very much guide what happens in each of the courses, if that helps to answer. But Steve, you can maybe speak to that a little bit more.
Yeah, great question. I think the integrated approach is what we're aiming for as well, for sure, and bringing this this interest of the students in mind. So for physical education, we would look at outdoor settings for physical education to occur, and what topics could include within outdoor learning spaces that is away from your traditional physical education team-based approach games. So, and also integrating health within the physical education classroom as well, to increase not only our content knowledge, but our pedagogical content knowledge and how to deliver quality physical and health education with outdoor activities as well. And then, if I may add, many of the courses are an integrated approach. It's just really the one health course, the one physical education course, and the one outdoor ed course that would have that more of an emphasis on those areas, but with an integrated lens.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
And then, yeah, back to Justin's question about sort of teaching experience. I think it's a tough question to answer. Typically, our programs ask for people to have 2 years of teaching experience before beginning a master's. And I think having that experience can be really helpful in terms of bringing in experiences into the classroom. But as well, I think we have a number of students who, particularly because of our area in physical, outdoor, and health education, I think a lot of students outside of the school setting have tremendous experience, either through coaching or through community work or through outdoor leadership programs. Will often have a lot of experience that they bring to the program. So I can't really give you a direct answer, Justin, because it always comes down to probably your own personal experiences and understandings and where you feel you're at in terms of your learning and teaching. But the cohorts tend to have a range of students, some with a lot of teaching experience, and some with some students that are quite new or quite new teachers as well. So if you're coming in as a newer teacher, I don't think you would be alone, but really it would be up to you in terms of thinking if it's the best time to pursue a master's.
I have one more question kind of related. It's kind of the opposite of what was just asked, but you mentioned that you have like a spectrum of experience with teaching or with your students and their teaching jobs, but how have teachers found, like for the more experienced teachers, what are some of the benefits that you've or the feedback that you've received from people who have been, let's say, teaching PE for 10 years or have been practicing these pedagogies? Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, I think Steve can speak to that as well, because I think he came into he completed a master's and would have some good insight around that.
Yeah, again, a great question. And I think we're all continuing to learn in terms of our own pedagogical practices. And it's a refreshing opportunity for experienced teachers to look at what is the current literature and research around the field of health, outdoor, and physical education, and really look to embed that into your new practice as an experienced teacher to continue on with best practices. So I think it's it's a huge enhancement that we've seen for experienced teachers, and it also is a great discussion to have with experienced teachers, with new beginning teachers a couple of years out of the MEd program, to engage in this dialogue of what is possible in terms of best practices in our field.
And I think, Lindsay, just to add to that in terms of, so I started working at UBC right at the end of the second Hope cohort. And my first, essentially my first teaching responsibility was helping the students in the Hope cohort finish their graduating projects. And I think from a lot of them, it was the graduating projects that they found incredibly valuable. And I know that a lot of master's programs now have moved away from requiring a graduating project, and oftentimes will just offer a course-based program. And I think some teachers that come into the program as students will have some hesitancy around completing a graduating project that will sometimes involve research. But I think by the end of the program, oftentimes that's the aspect that people have found the most valuable in terms of really digging into a topic they're interested in, potentially completing some research or some inquiry or some kind of practitioner or action research around that interest, and then working towards publishing and presenting that work has been something that for even experienced teachers, I think gives them something quite valuable.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, essentially, it's if you have a passion project that you've been looking to start, this is a good opportunity to start it through the graduating project. And I think that answers your question that was provided to the RSVP as well. So there's a couple other questions, Shawn. I think if nobody else has a question, that I'll going back to those questions, I'll ask you as well.
Yeah, great idea.
Okay, one was wondering what master's students have done with their continued education, specifically after graduating from the cohort.
So I think it is a mix, as I mentioned in the program overview. I think our primary audience is K through 12 teachers. So in terms of moving on after the program, I think it mostly affects their practice. And I think it's something that, especially as Steve mentioned, the possibility of pursuing sort of a project you're passionate about really, I think, impacts your practice moving forwards. There's a lot of P's in there, so I was really playing with the alliteration. But also, I think the graduating project does open up opportunities for students who may want to continue on with research and learning. So oftentimes it can be difficult to transition from a master's of education into a PhD, but I think the focus on the graduating project allows students to do that. So Steve is an example of that. As well, we've had other students who finished the Hope cohort who are now doing doctoral studies at SFU. So having that option, I think, is useful. And then other than that, I think graduates from our Hope cohorts have also continued on to become instructors at UBC or other institutions. So in terms of teaching at the post-secondary level, it's not obviously not the majority of our students, but the ones who are interested and have completed the Hope MEd have then come back and taught some of our courses in the Bachelor of Education program, or have co-taught courses at the graduate level. So there are different opportunities, but really it comes down to as a student what you want to accomplish through the Masters of Education, and I think it's oftentimes what you want to do as a student that can sort of drive that process. I think there's no guarantees around what a Masters of Education will provide for you. It really comes down to how you leverage that yourself. And then I think
just a follow-up question to that was, there was multiple questions about the workload and teaching full-time and balance.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we answered that a little bit in terms of trying to offer the in-person courses in more of an intensive manner in the summer, so that people can have most of their summer for themselves. And then during the school year, so that winter term 1 and winter term 2, having the courses online. And typically it's just one online course per term. And again, if meetings are required, it's usually after school hours. I think the heaviest term will be winter term 2 in the first year, where you're taking 2 online courses. But I think I don't think that's for working teachers, that's not necessarily that difficult. I think we have a number of students in the master's program right now who will take 2 in-person courses while teaching full-time. So it's not impossible. And I think that's the hardest term there is, but otherwise I think it is quite manageable in terms of working full-time and teaching. And then I think just getting back to Josh's question, so Josh, the program interests me as a past outdoor ed teacher, but I do not have formal training in PHE. Is that an issue? Would I then be certified to teach PHE following graduation? I think Josh, it would depend if you are a certified teacher in British Columbia to begin with, and maybe you are by saying you're an outdoor ed teacher. I think entering into the program without a background in physical and health education is absolutely fine. I think we've had people in the program before who come from more of an outdoor leadership background or outdoor education background. So I don't think that's an issue. In terms of being certified to teach PHE, I think that, and Steve can speak to this as well, I think it really comes down to how districts and administrators hire teachers to teach PHE. I think having a graduate degree in our program, for me, I would see that as qualifying you. But again, it could really just depend on, or not. I would hesitate to say the word qualifying, but I think it would put you in a position where administrators would likely see you as a candidate for PHE. But I think throughout our province, people who are not qualified to teach PHE are often teaching PHE. So I think it's really just a tough question to say that you would be considered qualified, when oftentimes it comes down to the discretion of employers.
Yeah, certainly. And I think if you're certified to teach from a BEd program, you're certified to teach K to 12. It's just really where your expertise and certification then comes from. So certainly adding that you've completed a health outdoor physical education master's cohort would benefit you as being hireable for a district in physical and health education, which typically houses outdoor education as well.
And then I see a question from Talia about possibly not finishing or having to extend the program. Kelvin, I'm not sure if you know the details around this, but because it's a part-time program, I imagine typically for a master's, you would have, I think, 5 years to complete all of the requirements. I'm not sure how it operates with students who opt out of a cohort, for example. I imagine you would maintain the credits you have completed, and then we would have to find a way for you to complete the remaining credits within the 5-year timeline, which I imagine should be possible. I could not see why they would not allow that. It would just be, again, coming down to some of the timelines that graduate studies has for the maximum time, which I think for part-time is maybe 5 years for a master's. But Talia, if you email myself or Kelvin or both of us, we can double check on that.
Yeah, so adding on to what Shawn said, basically echoing what Shawn said, but on top of that, is very much a case by case, scenario by scenario solution or arrangement. So in short answer, yes, there is usually a way to pause and extend the program, but you would have to provide us with more information regarding, what are the circumstances, how long do you wish to, pause or extend, because there can certainly be many different arrangements into allowing us to support students to complete the program eventually within the timeline that UBC grad school allows you to do so. But yes, we need more concrete information before we can provide a non-generic reply, unfortunately.
And then
Another
Lindsay's
question.
asking, oh, yeah, is the content focused on K through 12? I would say that is part of the focus, but as well, I think our interest is in extending ideas relating to health, outdoor, and physical education across the lifespan. But yeah, I think the primary focus of most of the courses is on K through 12. That said, in the last Hope cohort, I would say, just from my memory, about half a dozen students completed projects that were outside of the scope of K through 12 education. So students completed projects relating to experiences of teacher candidates in our program, and there were projects around university athletes, projects around adult education, but the coursework itself, I think, is more grounded within K through 12. But Steve, you can also speak to that as well, since you're often teaching the phys ed course.
Yeah, like you mentioned, primary focus would be curriculum K to 12, and that's the setting for schools. But of course, as you mentioned, Shawn, not all the projects are geared towards the school setting, as you mentioned. So there's a lot of flexibility in that graduating project that aligns with health, outdoor, and physical education. Does that help?
Yeah, I guess I was more curious about when you do your bachelor's, you're focused in elementary or secondary, and being a secondary teacher, that would be where I'd be more invested. And so I'm less curious, about certain areas, more curious about certain ages.
Yes, certainly. We'll speak globally to, physical education or physical literacy or outdoor learning. But if you're looking at honing in on a specific grade because that's your wheelhouse of your work, then it's of course going to be targeted to the assignment that you're going to complete, essentially, right? So there's a lot of flexibility there.
Thanks.
And I should add, many of the students in the past have had buddies or colleagues from schools that have joined the cohort together. That creates a community of practice with not only within the Hope program, but also within your schools. And there was one question here, Shawn, about reference letters. Is it okay to ask do they need to be academic references, or principals and vice principals sufficient? If I just want to just add quickly, it is great that you are connecting with your principals and vice principals, that you are entered into this program. They could also support you in the work that you're doing. And if there's any passion projects that come out of implementing back into schools, that could be something that could be worth exploring. But does it have to be academic references, Shawn?
Kelvin, do you know, do they require an academic reference letter, or can it all be from principals or like work supervisors?
So we understand that for a lot of applicants, it might have been a while since you've completed your previous education, and that it might not be possible to, obtain an instructor's reference from all those years ago, basically. My experience managing other education graduate programs is that for education references from long ago, let's say it's been, 6 or maybe 10 years since you last did any studies, the understanding is that applicants are no longer the same individual whom they are 6 to 10 years ago. So in that sense, is definitely advised that if you're unable to obtain relevant references of that nature, that current professional references are okay, but then they would have to speak to your ability to quote unquote complete or handle graduate studies, basically, or have the commitment to do so, if that makes any sense. I see that there are no longer any unanswered questions in chat. So last call for any questions on both the general program content and also application related stuff. Now's the chance.
I think maybe I just see in the RSVPs, there were some questions around what the graduating project actually looks like. And I think I've alluded to this a little bit, but I could maybe be a bit more direct. So the graduating project is within a Master's of Education is a 3-credit course, but we try to tailor the cohort model to help you complete that graduating project through the research methods course. So the Education 500 course is a course that we will use to help you prepare a proposal for your graduating project. And then leading up to the actual graduating project, which is EDCP 590, we'll have a course, EDCP 508, which again will be used as a way for you to begin digging into some of the literature or some ideas around that graduating project. So we do devote quite a bit of time within the cohort for you to complete that graduating project. It's not just a single 3-credit course where you're having to complete this project in just a few months. So there is quite a bit of time devoted to it. Within our department, I think graduating projects take on a variety of different forms, and we're quite flexible in what a graduating project can look like. So the HOPE cohorts in the past have been a little bit more research focused, but that's not a requirement. The projects can be, again, I think as I briefly mentioned, can focus more on the creation of teaching resources or the creation of a curriculum. It can take on artistic forms or forms of visual representation. Students in our program have created online resources or have done projects around social media. So there is quite a bit of flexibility there. And so hopefully that will answer some of those questions in the RSVPs.
One advice that I always give is that it's never a wrong time to start a master's. It's always a good time, and it's really fulfilling, the work that you do in terms of the accomplishment at the end of a master's cohort, as well as your future direction as a educator or learner. So it's always a good time to start. You'll find time.
Yeah, and if you do have additional questions, feel free to reach out to myself and Kelvin. I'm happy to meet again to talk through questions you have. If you think of things later on, or if you have questions about the program moving forward, I'll always be available. And I think the application deadline is the middle of January, so we will likely be looking to send out emails and reminders probably the beginning of January, and possibly hosting another information session the beginning of January, just to make sure that we're getting the numbers that we need. But I think if there's no other questions, thank you so much for attending, and look forward to seeing people's questions or applications in the future.